Hey, welcome to Talking in Stations. It's Matterall. I am running a bit late for some reasons, and I still have some reasons that are going to pull me away. So, what I'm going to do is introduce a couple guys. I'm going to hang out with you while I talk about EVE Online, and I'll make it back as soon as I can. So, with me today is Nick Bison. How are you doing, Nick?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
All right, Nick's an industrialist, high sec, right?
Yep, definitely there.
Yeah. And also with us is Jiao. Did I say it wrong?
Hi,
Shen.
yeah, Shen. Yeah. Hi, everyone.
All right. Listen, guys, can you take over for a second? I've got to tend to something that's urgent, and I'll be back as soon as I can.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
All right. Hey, this is Nick, and Shen's obviously here. There's a little bit of happenings down south, it appears, in the in Delve region. Specifically, I believe it was 3 TAC D. Have I got that right, Chen?
Yep. So this 3-TAC-D, the system that's connected with the jump bridge to 1DQ. Um, so Pappy today dropped two Azbels in there and had a pretty big skirmish in there with the Imperium. So in
No,
total, it's about like 100 billion, I think, lost in values from both sides combined together.
now I heard they had another Asbel that was finishing anchoring. Was that what the initial fight was over, or kind of how'd that morph?
I wasn't actually in the fight, but what I heard is they have two ads bills right now online in 3 TAC-D.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that'll be the jumping point that'll be the tethering point for like a lot of future ops that Happy will do in the constellation of 1DQ.
Oh, that's going to cause, if they get a good foothold in there, a couple of anchored structures, if they get past the anchoring and get cored and defended, that could change some of the dynamic. It's still a heck of a mountain to climb in that constellation. Imperium has a lot of solid forces right there nearby, so it could be the shape of how this may move. Very slowly, one step at a time, keep plugging away, kind of like they did on a getting the initial keep stars into Delve, but in this case, a smaller steps with smaller structures just to get started. I also heard that both Army of Mango and Frat were involved there together. Is that accurate?
Yep, we both of the alliances were there. We're still peaceful in Delph. We don't shoot each other in Delph supposedly, but sometimes there will be misfires. But like on the surface, we're not allowed to shoot each other. But outside of the war zone, is free engagement. So we're kind of like the frenemies to each other right now, with AOM and fraternity.
That's I think that I find that so intriguing and actually pretty cool that outside of Delve, you'll go ahead and take shots at each other wherever you can. As soon as you step inside Delve, it's like, okay, we have a common goal or a common enemy. And that's kind of a neat, interesting gameplay. It's got to be headaches for the FCs, though, to keep it straight.
Yeah, well, that's why I see some like misfires to each other on each other's side, but it's definitely neat. It's a unique experience. Like I never thought I would get on the same kill mill as fraternity, right? So anything can happen.
And that's wild. That's but at the same time, pretty cool. I mean, you don't see that happening terribly often.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, we have Mr. Matterall is back. He's as he gets his headphones squared away. I'm gonna shut the heck up.
No, no, keep going, and we'll
Oh,
transition
okay.
after you finish.
We were just kind of reviewing, the couple of Asbels, either anchored or anchoring in the 3 TAC D, trying to get that foothold in the constellation. Mentioned that both AOM and Frat inside Delve try not to shoot each other, and when they're outside, different ball game. So this is kind of interesting, especially I've kind of made the analogy, and you may want to correct it. by going with the smaller structures, one at a time, get that foothold in, actually reminds me of a smaller scale of trying to get that first keep star into Delve.
Yeah, who's fighting in
Yeah,
this arena? Is it Bastion, and is it everybody, or is it a select group?
it's definitely everybody. If on the battle report, you can see basically all the major alliances are on it, like Bastion Initiative, Goonswarm, and Ranger Regiment. They're all on the uh, Imperium side, and on the other side is Pandemic Horde, Test, Fraternity, NC, and Brave. All those Pappy guys.
Wow.
I was kind of
Okay.
curious if, while they're trying to put something in 3 TAC D, from the Quirius entry, are they doing any, when I say they, is the Pappy forces doing any poking from the T5Z into 1DQ directly, just to basically kind of keep them honest? It's like, hey, we might not want to completely walk away from 1DQ and head to 3 TAC D, because we're right here too.
Yeah, right now definitely is pressure on all sides on the constellation, trying everything we can, dropping Azbels first, maybe some bigger structure in the future, just like when we first started in NPC Delve.
If
Yeah,
I,
one of the things I was thinking about was, when you talk about this scale and this number of pilots, it's real easy for 1 or 2 pilots to kind of disappear. From when you're talking 1,000 players in the system, or 1,000 pilots. You know, there could be very well cloaky people now in just about every system inside that constellation. From the Pappy side, as eyes and ears. So that, in addition to gaining a foothold, they can also start planting people. Probably already have. I'm probably a week behind on that.
Yeah, just one interesting note on that, which is even though there are about like 1,500 people in that one system when the fight occurred, there wasn't a huge tie dye, which is surprising with some of the performance that we've seen recently. It's very nice today that um, little to no tie dye in 3 TAC D when the fight happened.
okay, what system was that?
3 TAC D
Oh,
and
okay.
QT.
Oh, well, that's the okay. Okay, so I'm catching up to you now. And that's Delve, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
the
Yeah.
final constellation. I almost said final countdown. It reminded me of an old song.
Yeah, I knew where you were. Let's go to I have ownership. That's the easiest way to see, the dividing lines. But for anybody that doesn't know, I think most of our fans do. The area is here, and the fight took place here. And you'll notice, by the way, fancy drawing tools. Let me make this bigger. That this is some about 1DQ. I think I pointed this out before, but I'll do it again. We're in Delve. This is 1DQ. And here is let me give that a different color. We'll give it red for stop. That is the capital of the Imperium. And you notice that it links to 2 systems, links to all these 3, and this one here as well. So what that does is it isolates those, because you can't really go into these systems without going through 1DQ. That is not true for these, right? So we're talking about sweeping up into here and here from Aquarius without ever having to go through 1DQ. And that's why you're seeing these 2 attacked early on.
Yeah, a lot of times what you see is we have a jump gate from T5Z to E tag V, and what we do is we do a skirmish in 3 tag D, and then we run back gate by gate from NTAC 8 and 1DQ and then T5Z. So that's like a small round
Where,
skirmish that we often do.
where's that gate from?
That jump gate is T5Z to what is it?
Oh, okay.
E tag V. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see. Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So they're basically going from Delve to here, and then from here and back into Delve. So this system, which I will move us back into. This is probably the best way to look at it, but you essentially have a jump gate that goes like this. And that's
Yeah, it seems more
super
visual
simple.
on the Delft side. Yeah.
I'm using my mouse. I'm going to go buy a pen or something to make this a little bit easier because I'm.
You're doing remarkably good for a mouse, but when I do that, it's
Yeah.
real bad. There was one, what's he, Millie Trenick Trooper. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name in chat. Makes some remark. It says, but you guys are not considering the massive YOLO op in Pochven, um, and or possibly in a quiet space. Dude, if you could add a little line or two on
Yeah, we're
of that,
tracking.
because that's news to us here.
We're tracking that. We'll go to that next. But in war news, though, 3 TAC D. I heard something about the initiative restaging. Do you guys know anything about where initiative's going?
Not at the moment.
Yeah, let me double check. Oh, okay. So clear that. I'll have to double check some notes from source, but let me just see. Yeah, here it is. So 3 Azbels in one. Here's I think what we're supposed to be looking at. This is the battle that took place today, I believe. Close to about 1,700 to 2,000, and let's see. But I did hear
Big Tuna. I'm sorry for interrupting. Big Tuna just dropped mentioned that believes Init were staging back to 1DQ earlier today.
3 TAC D. I think is where they're going. I think. Let's see. Major fights. Here's a little thing. I think this is from the Pappy side of things. I'm not sure. It says we fought in 1DQ and 3 TAC D twice. Again, this is from the Pappy perspective. Goons only managed to bring 2 hack fleets and an attempt at a third. They had carriers and supers. This is from their words. Too scared to commit capitals off tether in a Sinojam system. The bastion of the 1DQ constellation is crumbling. We ref 2 more pauses and dropped 2 Azbels. The cherry on top, we smashed them in the battle report. Okay, so again, those are the words of Pappy people. That's not a spy, that's some kind of ping. And I think what's going on is that they're securing some objectives, but also the cherry on top is they're also winning some battle reports, which probably not the big deal. The big deal are that slow progress into 1DQ constellation is what they're looking for. I think we expected for a while the first few weeks would be a lot of really good fights, full fights, people putting up fierce resistance from the Imperium, and high level of commitment from Pappy. And there would be a lot of testing and a lot of shoving back and forth, basically, but not much progress. That was kind of what we were expecting looking at it, because there's just really formidable defenses inside of that 1DQ constellation. So if Pappy is starting to make a little bit of progress here and there, they're definitely writing that down and saying, okay, guys, we're moving forward. But the more that Imperium can frustrate them and take away their victories or roll back whatever progress they make, the longer they can do that, the possibility is that Pappy will get frustrated, tired, or just not see that things are going very well. They'll have to change their plan or possibly give up on the war.
Yeah. As far as frustrating Pappy, DJ Robin reported that been quite a few Titans have been seen docking up in the 3 TAC-D. So get them closer to the field. Don't have to bridge them or jump them in. Not a bad move on the Imperium side.
Yeah, this is footage from Ron USMC. We can see, Titan bumps, but you're seeing Super Capitals, Titans, and Super Carriers arriving in 3 TAC-D. Not sure if that's a restaging or if they were jumping there for a different reason. I don't know if they're coming back to 1DQ or if they're going to start in 3 TAC-D. I thought they were going to restage the 3 TAC-D to kind of bolster the defense. If that's the case, it might be interesting to have a full-time defensive group in that system.
Yeah, wanted to know with
Kind of makes sense. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Shin. Sorry.
Wanted to know with the Titans, is the lens Doomsday on them that's going to be very effective on the gates and the rapier when defending certain structures and to wipe out entire sub-capital fleet. That's
Right.
a tactic that people often use in Serenity, at least when we have a huge super capital force that the other side doesn't have on grid. Use lenses on the gate to wipe out the fleet, because you just come out as a ball out of the gate. You're surrounded surround the gate at like 12 kilometer, and that's really easy with your lens.
Yeah, that makes sense. On a defensive footing, that's pretty good. I wonder if it's true that Init is going back to 3 TAC-D or even 1DQ, is that offensive campaign over in Slice territory over? Because they did get thwarted when they were trying to put down some staging structures, and they got pushed back.
That was out in Great Wildlands, correct?
Well, they were staging, I believe, in Great Wildlands. Let's go look at that. And that would have been on the border. Oops.
I guess the reason I asked that is, Init folks could jump clone back in a heartbeat, but they're not bringing any heavy assets back in. It'd be pretty hard to get into that Delve constellation with any assets at this point.
Yeah, I think they were trying to attack Slice. So let's see where Slice is. That's Pirates. That's probably... Here they are. It's a relatively big group. And they are, Imperium Reach. I was going to guess that, but I thought twice of it. So here's Slice in purple. They own a ton of it, but it is on the border of... Where's Great Wildland? Right here. Just zoom into that. So yeah, so they were, the initiative were coming to Great Wildlands. Let me see if I can grab that for you. They were going to stage there and try to do what they did with other Space and Legacy and just kind of harass the area. So you can see they would have had all these targets. Wrecked is, of course, Horde. So this whole area would have been up for grabs. But there was just too much resistance coming in and getting a beachhead. So if they had to return back to 3 TAC-D, this is a clear momentum switch from going on the offensive and that being cheered just last week to now reversing themselves.
And in its defense, they are some really good counterpunchers. They jump out there, cause some havoc, pull back. I don't know if that's really a setback for them, or if that's, we accomplished what we wanted to do. We caused havoc over here, took some of the focus away from Delve. Now we'll head back for a little bit, for a little Delve defense. I would not be surprised at all to see Init back out in some deep Pappy area, causing havoc in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I wish I could see some kind of logic to it, but I don't. I don't think they accomplish much going east. And I think the evidence is that they went east. Pappy defended east. Pappy went into 3 TAC D and did a variety of things today that seemed to be good for them. So it just doesn't seem like that worked. But I think if there was some evidence of going over there and keeping them over there and nothing happening in the Delve area, then that's some evidence you could look at to say, maybe this is a good idea to keep people busy in other places, keep them off balance, or even going back and forth, that adding to fatigue or something where people have to clone jump and sometimes they get stuck because their timer's not out, or anything that has some kind of strategic logic to it would be interesting. But it just looks like they went over there. They couldn't put down an attack forward operating base, and they came back to defend today. So I don't know. We'll have to find out a bit more about this, I think.
Yeah, I'm not, as well, full disclosure, everybody knows I'm not an Imperium type or fan, but I don't want to count these Init guys out. I got a lot of respect for what I've seen them do for a number of years now. So, yeah, like I said, don't want to count these guys out.
Right. Okay. Anything else in this war zone you guys have?
No, did you have? Oh, sorry, Shed.
It's just future. I think in the future will be a lot easier, at least for now, for tethering in 3 TAC D when you have 2 Azbels to tether up.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What's the significance of putting down Azbels? Why are those first?
So the Azbel, so if you look at the model of an Azbel, it has a really long length at from one side to the other, which gives a wide range for a fleet to tether, so you don't bump off each other. And people often choose between an Azbel and a Fortizar. The reason why they choose an Azbel instead of a Fortizar is that the Azbel is like half the price of a Fortizar. So even if you lose it, it's not that much in cost compared to the Forge.
And if you get, an Asbel in there, that means you don't have to leave the system, um, to come back and do another fight. You can dock up right there, and that just brings a little bit of a foothold for them.
Yeah, this is kind of similar tactic when the M2 fight happened, and Papi were trying to break into M2 to restart their to regain their foothold in M2 for the iHubs and the control of the system.
Right. So is that wider than an Astra House, for instance? I know these are cheaper, but is it wider?
Yeah, it's definitely wider than an Astra House.
That's a really good
It's
point. I
also
hadn't thought of.
cheaper than a Fortizar.
Yeah. So you put down a structure that you can tether on, because really that's what you're looking for, is the ability to tether. Reduce, you're immune to damage, but you also get to re-energize and get capacitor. So tethering, if you can do it on this engineering complex as well as you could on any other structure like an Astra House, why not? They're cheaper. But I like the idea that they're wider. I hadn't thought of that. And what was the advantage to that? You can spread out more?
Yes, but it's for subcapitals, I don't think it matters that much. But in the future, when you can bring, let's say, Titans for tethering, for bridging, or like some other capital ships, there's a high chance they're gonna bump off each other, especially during the initial Sino int. But if you have a big structure or like a wider structure, more space for people to tether, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, a little bit more security.
Panic Fires also mentions it can fit a PDS. I didn't know that. So good catch, bud.
A PDS is a point defense system, which is the way it functions in the game is kind of like a smart bomb. It's like a radius of effect. But the way it looks in the game, it looks awesome. It looks like turrets, thousands of little turrets just shooting into space. blasting every little ship around them, and it does damage. I believe it damages everybody who's not tethered around the structure. So, and it's pretty. It's got a pretty good bite. I think it takes out little ships pretty well, but it has a
Yeah, it's
limited
basically
range.
one shot all the small frigates. So within like 20-kilometer radius, I think it depends on the rigs and the tech of the point defense system, like their T1 and T2 ones. So you don't want to be within the range when the PDS has started. That's especially true with the faction fortizars, where they have the special rigs in them, which can extend the range for those PDS to like 38 or something like that. Like it
Wow.
depends on the rigs and the tech again.
Wow. 38K radius around a structure, full smart bomb effect. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, and other than smart bomb, it shoots out like every single second. It's not like smart bomb where you have the duration. You have to one round the other.
Oh, that's a good point too. Okay, so the Azbels did not online. They were what, anchored?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
guy said they should
So
finish the anchoring process tomorrow. That means you got to core them and then defend it for 15 minutes to take advantage. What was his name? One of the folks in there, I think it was DJ Robbins, said, poor man's fort, and it'll then keep your distance. It's going to die anyway. Yeah, I think Pappy fully expects. They're not going to get the first one in. They're not going to get the second, not the third. They're going to keep plugging away. Is appears to be part of their plan.
keep your distance there says both cores were stolen also. Nice. I didn't know that. That's news to me. Good on Imperium if they stole a couple of cores. Although these aren't going to be the expensive ones, but still, these are cores.
I like that both cores were stolen. That
Yeah,
is
that's pretty
just
funny.
freaking awesome.
So tomorrow, because once you put down and anchor a structure, it takes 24 hours for it to online, and then you have to fight over it, 24 hours later. So I think in about, when do these go down? It's about 12 to 20 hours. There should be another big fight this weekend over the survival of that Azbel. We presume there will be a big fight. There may not be.
Most interesting. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Unfortunately, I'm working tomorrow, so I won't be able to watch it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at something else that happened today. Maybe you guys know about this. Stiblog. Stirbog is a group inside of Pochven, right? They have a block more or less now cooperating with Goonswarm and the Imperium. I don't think they are blue to one another. Don't know if their standings are set at +5 or +10. But they are friendly with one another. I think they have the same purpose. And Strybog was trying to establish a major Triglavian alliance in Pochven. A lot of Pochven natives are now cooperating. I think what this news brief is saying is that they're starting to look like some kind of Pochven coalition forming, or maybe too early to tell. There's a few things going on as far as coalitions go, and people are, I think, right now testing out their diplomatic options and trying to make, trying to open communication channels with different people, not only in Pochven but also in Losec. And I think what people are doing is kind of preparing for the versatility that they might need in the future. And Pochven is definitely a place where people are going to want to go into. It's where you get materials to build the Triglavian ships. So you're gonna need to have some kind of resources in there. It's also a good place to make money.
Yeah, the economic opportunity I think is really untapped. A lot of folks probably seeing the beginnings of it right now. Some folks are probably taking good advantage of it. So
Sure.
yeah.
I was talking to somebody, I won't say who, they're making $1 trillion, maybe $1 trillion per week. But I think
Really?
that might be too long. No. It was $1 billion per think it was. God, I have to look. I think it was a billion. It was a big number, but I don't think it was a trillion. I think it might have been a billion. Sounds way too small. So
Just an interesting note, I guess, which is a Triglavian material to build the T2 ships, which is something that the Pochven exports as their main loot when they do the export. One of them is called the 0-point fuel manipulator. That's the most expensive component for T2 Triglavian ships right now. So that thing spiked from earlier. So before Pochven came along, it was around like 250,000 one piece, and right now the highest is being is about 700K. And recently, what we have seen is the price has dropped since the the change has or were implemented. Right now, the price is around 600K. So this may be a sign of the T2 Triglavian ships can be more accessible to everyone else, because right now Terza is about 800 to 900 million.
that's it. Yeah. Shoot, I think I got a few of those right before the changes. Probably not the best investment. Let me see if I can bring up the market. I can look at the market and see if there's anything going on that's interesting. By the way,
Yeah, so most of the T1 Triglavian ships, their material, right now they are kind of counted as a faction ship where they need the new materials, the PI and the gas products. But before the change, it was minerals plus uh, the Triglavian material, which is the 0-point condensate and the crystalline isogen 10, which both of them came from comes from abyssal dead space.
sorry, 1 second. My sound is up. I need to kill that sound. 1 second. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so since most of the T1 materials are from the abyssal dead space, which has no effects on the market when Pochven became Pochven, essentially, but the T2 materials came from minor conduits or major conduits in known space before the Pochven change. So right now, all the conduits went away, and they become the combat sites inside of Pochven. So that put down has put down a lot of barriers to a lot of people to access those materials. That's why it's getting more and more expensive, as we can see.
Yeah.
Is that an icky we're looking at right there?
Yeah, that was Icky Tersa. It went up slightly. I think in the if you that's
Yeah, if
only
you
the
look at
last
the
few days.
material, so it turns out, so I think it's I think it's a MAR uh, MR research chip, so it requires a MAR T2 material plus all the other Triglavian T2 material. But the 0-point field manipulator is the one that's the most expensive out of all of them.
Well, the Kikamura has gone up rather a lot.
Yeah, that's because the industrial change that happened this week.
I could see it got bought up.
Well, that's quite the jump in price there.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a stroll. Thanks for that. Let's take a stroll. We always start out with the PLEX because PLEX is like gold. I did see that recovery. Did you notice that recovery after a long downturn? It seemed to scoop up after production changes. I couldn't make sense of that. And then it's now dipped back and stabilized again. So I think that's kind of a new normal for a while. These things offset each other, and I don't know if that was to do with sales because there were some promotional sales that went out and stuff. So what happens during a sale is that people will buy like a package, and they want the SP out of the package, and they get a handful of PLEX, and they don't really want the PLEX, so they just kind of dump that on the market. So you have an influx of a bunch of PLEX. that'll drive the price down. But I don't know what drove it up, if there was some demand, but it does seem to coincide with the production changes. I think also,
if you
go ahead.
look at the timeline, like my analysis on that is because a lot of people who has a lot of industrial out that has the skills for a lot of production lines and skills for, let's say, capital shipbuilding or something like that. They just leave them to alpha, basically not subscribed. And when the industrial change hit, when the dev block came out, people started to realize, oh, we need those outs right now for this month at least to start to cramping in as many components for capital ships or as many ships as we can. So that's, I think, people, like a lot of industrialists, starting to buy PLEX to PLEX up their out. And later on in the month, when the market stabilized, they're saying, oh, this is just for a month. And when we know, so around the time where the peak started going down, I think that's when the blueprints are implemented, and it was assured basically that a couple weeks after that, the change will be actually implemented, and that's when the PLEX market started to go down. That's my read on it.
Yeah. Well, it's as good as any. Yeah, I think that the demand on Plex due to alts, having alt accounts, so you could do multiple things, will drive the demand for Plex, so that people don't spend actual money on their actual alts, so they give them more gameplay. There's a funny little recipe there of things. As people put away alts because they don't need them, Plex prices sink because nobody's putting demand on it. But again, as people are looking at, oh, I need new harvesters for this new patch, then maybe you see a buy up of Plex and skill injectors so that they can get people into shape to be able to alt the accounts they need for certain things. Game of alts, terrible thing. All right. Let's see. Is there any other place to look that might be interesting? I did want to check something because, let's go to ARC. These are jump freighters. Go to all of them. I gambled that the price was going to go up. I use myself as an example. I'm not some kind of rich trader, but just as an example of where things going. And I think that paid off, even though it was, yeah, every one of these jump freighters has gone up in price. They have stabilized.
I can't quite see that. How much has that jumped up?
Well, it's gone from, I was buying at like 8.6, 8.7 to about 13. So about good 35, 40%.
Wow, that's huge. That's great.
Yeah, what's nice about those big purchases, they're gambles, but when you do a big purchase, you end up, you make 5 billion on every one of these instead of 200 million, where you have to do 50, 60 of them. Let's go at something else that we advised people to look into, and that was battleships that were faction or even Navy, but we'll start with
Dominic's Navy issue.
yeah, those are the wrong faction.
Oh, no, it's not. It's Galente, damn it. Plus, that's one of the more
that's a
popular
battle
mission
cruiser. I'm in
boats.
the wrong place. That's why.
Like one thing interesting on the market for pirate battleship is the Barghest. It's sold out completely.
Let's start there. Well, I see Barghests on the market, but they're a whole lot. They always were. These things used to sit at 500 million.
Wait, yeah. Well, like I think a couple days ago it's none. I don't know.
Well, whoever reset the price reset it way high.
Yeah.
Let's look at this. You'll see a giant jump. Yeah, to basically about 1.5. Well, the ones on the market now are selling for 1.7, which means whoever reset the market, which is what you saw somebody buy everything off the market and then bring everything back. They went up 200 million on these battleships. So they're gambling that people will want to pay for those. Materials seem to have stabilized, but higher, right? So people were buying them at about $500 million each, 500 million. Now they're going for about 800 million. That's just such a great return on investment.
Just a note on the Mercury as well, I think, which is you see a lot of legacy alliances leaving Angel space, which means a lot of the production of Macquarie blueprints, the production of Macquarie blueprints are going down, in some ways, and the people
Well,
who are occupying those space, they don't really rat in them. If you look at their ratting numbers, like in RC space, and in some other space like Omist and Faith of Olis, a lot of places are not being used for ratting at all. So that
Yeah.
means low amount of production
I'm
for
sure there's tons of stockpiles for
these
material,
things.
but you may be right in the long term. The other thing I thought is if the production cost for material is so high, does that mean the blueprint cost is going to drop? It depends, I think, on. I think it depends on where things start to settle out, because you start comparing one faction battleship to another, and you're saying, why am I paying so much for material when this other one is so much less? And you start saying, you know what, we just can't do material. Let's do something else. There's definitely money will enter into the equation on should we use this ship or not at some point. So if they get really high, I wonder if there'll be a natural. There's two things that can happen. There's a safety valve where people buy the ship. They don't make the ship. They don't buy the blueprint. They don't do any of that. They actually just buy it off the market, off the LP market. And that means, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here, but if I can do enough missions for a faction and accumulate enough loyalty points, and that's easy for me and fun, then I have a big pot of cash at the loyalty point store for that faction. I'm going to buy a battleship with that because it's just cheaper than buying a really expensive blueprint for 400 million and then building the ship for another billion. It may be much cheaper just to get the LP and to get the battleship, but that's got to balance out over time. There are stockpiles. People are probably letting stuff go cheaper than usual because they're still making profit themselves, but whoever's buying is buying at a price that's not quite as heated as it might get later on. So there's just a lot to, these things are going to take months and months to settle out. In fact, material, I think it might take at least 6 months to a year to settle out. There's just so many stockpiles of material blueprints and stuff. So I wondered about that. But let's look at the Nightmare. That's what we're looking at now. That took a big jump from about 650 million to 1 billion. Remember we said these faction battleships are going to go to 1 billion at least? They might go a little under, but that's going to happen later when there's more supply. Right now, they're definitely sitting at 1 billion and above. So we'll see what happens there.
a
Hey,
few of them
awesome.
start
Thanks
getting popped, and then
for the hype train.
as they get harder to replace, I can see it hitting and staying in around 1 billion.
I think that's where we predicted. Actually, we predicted 1 to 1.2. That's just build cost if all things stay the same, which they won't. We'll probably see some softening of materials to build these things. But that was without the blueprint. The blueprint themselves used to go for 400, well, anywhere from 200 to 400 million. So you have to put that on top if you're going to buy the blueprint from somebody else. And then the 10% tax if you're building it in JITA, and it just starts to add up. So after a while, it just may make sense to prepare to pay 1.2 billion for these things, or look into the LP store, see if you can get it cheaper that way. Thanks for all the cheers and subs, Sawyer. Appreciate that. Okay, let's look
I
at.
think.
Oh, go ahead.
There are two times. There are two times that that LP will come into this equation. First one is when the blueprints, the rarity of the blueprints is rare enough for the LP to be worth to just grab the blueprint and then build it with the materials.
Right.
And the second time comes in is if the material cost is too high, if if just using the LP to exchange the actual ship is worth it or not. It all depends on the market, and we'll see how that's gonna go.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables here, aren't there? I think there was one
Yeah,
time.
especially with faction.
Yeah, faction.
pirate ships.
Even before these changes, right? Even before these changes, there was a decision that had to be made because you can just tell if you're watching the game as much as we are, and you see CSM complaining about faction battleship being too cheap, and you see players saying it's materials online, and you just start to see the pressure mounting to do something about these pirate battleships. And I thought, well, something's going to happen to those pirate battleships. They've got to go up. They're even cheaper than the Navy issues from the empires, and it shouldn't be that way. Pirates should be more expensive than the Navy issue, and with some exceptions, of course. But so you kind of see like, well, the writing's on the wall. They're going to do something about those pirate battleships. So I bought up a ton. Just every day, I would just buy up a ton of pirate battleship blueprints. And then the decision had to be made. Do I build these things or do I hold on to them? Do they become more valuable after CCP moves on them and, nerfs them or whatever? Or does the building cost go up, therefore making the blueprint actually cheaper? So I didn't actually know which way to proceed. Luckily, CCP did move on increasing the price of the faction battleship and said the materials to build it are going to go up, and we're also going to tweak their drop rate. So actually, both things were true. So at that point, I just started to build as quickly as possible because they gave about a 2-week indication that this is going to change. So they didn't surprise everybody and change it one day to the next. So once they said we're going to make material costs go up on this faction battleship, that was the cue to start building the heck out of them so that you could capture that low price. Wow, thank you very much. Who was that? Racer 2K? Thank you. Appreciate it. Wow. Thank you. He just gave everybody a bunch of subs, so thanks for doing that. Yeah, so the point is, there's pressure on multiple fronts for all these things, and you kind of have to watch them all and try to figure out like where's the investment the best investment? Should I hold or should I sell? And of course, that's what experienced gameplay gets you, and over time you'll figure out what to do on these things. Now, this last major change to production and the complete override of ingredients that go into faction battleships was an easy one to spot. They gave us a month. They said what they were going to do. And so every faction battleship was going to cost more to build. At that point, you knew, and this is one of these, what I call a tidal wave. It's not like a wave that's big. It's not a big monster wave that comes and washes everything out. But then things return back to normal, the normal level. This was a tidal wave. It was a tidal shift, which means that this giant wall of water is coming at you. It's going to hit you, but it's going to reset what the new normal is. And those are great opportunities to, if you're prepared to make a profit. And the kinds of things that are tidal waves in this game are, well, like tier sides when they say, we're going to make the T1 cruiser more viable. Well, then if they make the T1 cruiser more viable, people are going to buy them. And in return of making it more viable, they're going to actually increase the amount of minerals that it took to build it. Then you know that that's a permanent change. So every cruiser that is in the market now is cheaper than it will be. And every cruiser that is built now will be cheaper than it will be. So that's a tidal shift, and you want to take advantage of those. And so I say all that to bring it to this point. A month ago, we heard they were going to change faction battleships. That was a tidal shift. It didn't matter how much it cost to build the faction battleship today, it was going to go up a good 40% in a permanent way, if not even higher. So it was a no-brainer to build. And a lot of people did. A lot of people took advantage of that. One last thing, I want to check the rattlesnake, because that's nice. It's not as
Didn't I say
expensive as the
Dominic's
others.
Navy issue?
Yeah, I'll check that one. I bought one of those just out of it doesn't matter if I bought it, but I grabbed one just because I love the way that the Dominic's looks these days. The rattlesnake did jump up. It's actually been higher than this. So rattlesnakes, I think, are still kind of a steal, but they may not be in high use right now. So they're slumping a little bit. But that rattlesnake has been over $1 billion on its own before any changes, when it was favored to do certain kinds of work in wormholes or in a Triglavian space, I think. So we'll see. I think that Raven can go up, but maybe not right now. And finally, let's look at the Navy battleships. And Dominic's.
Just one more point about the pirate battleships is their BPC distribution. You have to look at the geographics of those places. Where, for example, the Sanxia region has 3, which means that there will be less chances of a nightmare BBC comes out of escalations than let's say the Macarial one, where Angel has like 8 regions under their pirate control thing, where they are the pirate on for the local bells and anomalies.
That's such a good point. Look around and see who's farming the areas where these blueprints drop. Is there a good steady group of farmers that are doing the PvE required to get these loot drops? If there is, you'll see what happened to the Balgorn for many years when Imperium was farming all of the south west of the map. The Balgorn, which usually drops there from Blood Raiders, was plentiful. And so its price was ridiculously low, where other battleship blueprints were, I don't know, 200 to 400 million. The Balgorn was down to 80 million because there were just too many of them. That's an extreme example. But I think you were making the point earlier, Jen, that the new areas where Macarials drop is an unpacified area and unproven. Like nobody knows how much people. Oh, thanks for that hype train, guys. I don't know what that is, but I see a bunch of flashes, so thank you. But the Macarial is in a place that has just been burned down and is just now growing new vegetation. So we don't know what that vegetation is going to do to the place. Are they going to farm rigorously and provide a bunch of those? I don't know.
And also on that note, the Zhong region, which is some people say there's no Zhong line faction battleships, but what actually happens is in Zhong region, when you have escalation, at the end of them, or when you have a faction battleship spawns or faction, I think there's a faction battleship, you get something called the Nexus chip for Sisters of Eve, which then you can turn that in 1-for-1 for Nestor blueprints, BBC, in the LP store.
Okay, Stroom, we covered Init a bit earlier, and they appear to be back in 3TAC-D or 1DQ. So their deployment may be on hold right now. Not sure what their actual status is. We'll find out. But they were seen jumping their super capital fleets into 3TAC-D. All right. Yeah,
that definitely falls under developing story to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Well, looking at the Navy issue, I think, and also the Megathron, and let's look at Tempest. Let's look at all these. They just don't have that massive bounce that pirate battleships have, right? And we told you that too a few weeks ago. We said that the Navy weren't going to be jumping as high as the pirate battleships. The pirate battleships went up like 40%. These things seem to be going up a good 10 to 20%. So that came true. All right, I think that's it's good for market news. I think we're for not looking at the stuff earlier. The Hyperion was spiking a bit before, was over 500 million. Yeah, I wonder what's going on with Hyperion. Oh, the battleship. Oh, no, that's the Galente T1 battleship. Let's take a look at that. I just haven't seen it in a long time, but. Yeah, I think that was misinformation. People talking about Hyperion is a T1, right? And battleships were going to change.
It used to be
used to be a level 3 T1, changed. Right?
Yeah, tier 3 T1.
Yeah, they used to have so Tech when we say T, we're talking about technology. So Tech 1 is everything that you could just build out of minerals, and to do Tech 2 became more complex on the production side, but it was also a lot more powerful on the use case. So but every T1 family, like every Galente is a family, or Empire, or Amar, every T1 battleship class had 3 different battleships in it, and one was more expensive than the other, and it was usually a little more powerful. So the Hyperion, for instance, in the Amar, the Abaddon is the most powerful battleship they have, and the Armageddon is the weakest battleship they have, and in the middle is the Apocalypse. But in Galente, you have Dominix, which is probably the weakest or the cheapest, and then you have the Megathron, and then you have the Hyperion. And I didn't look at the mineral composition of those stages of battleships for T1, and it may be that more material was required for the Hyperion, like a lot more, than for the other 2 junior ones that were smaller. So I think people basically said, oh, we got to build a bunch of those, or we got to buy a bunch of those before they go up in price significantly. But I think that's going to come down. That's just the Hyperion. Let's look at its brothers and sister ships here. Yeah, everything shot up on speculation.
It's basically primary weapon of that empire and the secondary weapon. So, for example, the Galante ship, the primary weapon is drones, which you have the Domix, and the secondary weapon is the blasters, which you have it on the Megatron. And there's the third one, which is a special one. Each empire has a special one.
Yeah, all the battleships did go up because theoretically they were going to go up in price too, because they had these new ingredients that you needed to put into them. I suspect those prices are going to drop as the market starts to get past this shock. You're going to see those prices go back down to normal, maybe a little cheaper. Maybe. It depends on the sourcing of the materials that are now required, the PI. The interesting thing to me about all these new ships, or ingredients that are required for the ships that you used to build with just minerals, those ingredients, those new ones, have a lot of things drawing on them. So if you have a planetary interactive material or product like what's the one I'm thinking of? Machines. Oh, I forgot
Talking
the
about
name.
mechanical parts?
Thank you, mechanical parts. Yeah, I could see the image, but I forgot what it's
Robotics
called.
is the other one. Yeah.
Well, robotics is always good because it was a bottleneck for a lot of different things. So robotics was just like the cash cow of PI for a long time. It still may be, although water looks like it's the new hotness in that respect. And water was nothing. Water was a byproduct for a long time. But mechanical parts, for instance, may be used in T1 battleships, so you use a little for that. Or it may be used in, and I'm using this as a fictional example, I don't know if it goes in there. Or it may be used in capital ships, where you need a lot of that sort of thing. So the point is, there's a lot of different ships now that are drawing on that one resource. And so the demand on that resource isn't just being pulled from one area, it's being pulled from one direction. It's being pulled from many directions. And then you have to look at what's hot. Are people building a lot of Amarian capital ships? Because if that's true, maybe that draws a lot more on mechanical parts than if the Minmatar battleships were in style or capitals were in style. So you have to look at what people are flying, what the materials are that they're drawing from, and see how much demand pressure from different directions is coming into that one item. And then you can figure out if that's going to be a hot item or not. You'll figure it out anyway because the price will go up, right? Shortages will cause prices to go up. But
Yeah. And you look at the battleship's a great example. Pre-change, threw some minerals in the bucket, stirred it up, bang, you get a battleship. Now you need some R4 information, R4 stuff reacted down. You need gas from wormhole and maybe some from high sec. I don't know about that. PI and ice. So you need a little bit of everything now. So it's definitely changed the dynamic.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gone up over an hour. Hey, Ron, how's it going? We showed your clip earlier of initiative arriving in 3 TAC D. I wonder if he knows more than we covered today on that. I'd be interested to know. Nod your head if you do. Shake your head if you don't. All right. Well, we should wrap up, though. I got to get going. Anything else, Nick?
Nick's good, man.
You
Just
good?
glad to be here.
All right. Good to have you here. Sven? Called you Sven.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's all good, except for maybe the events. Oh, yeah. One thing I guess that's the news, which is right now every day you have an option to buy a sale in the New Eden store for 18 PLEX for skin, and the skin that we have today is the Rodiva Materia Exotica skin. I'm trying not to pronounce it wrong, but that's my best.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's the skin you can see in the New Eden store for 18 PLEX, and it's a new one every day until the 18th or something like that. I think it's until the 18th, starting on the 6th, which is yesterday. And Rodiva is actually kind of a rare ship. It's a T1 logistic cruiser for Triglavian.
See if I can track it down. Rhodesia, was it?
Rodiva.
There they are. Okay, these are for Triglavian ships.
Yeah.
I can't make that any bigger, so that's as big as it gets. Okay. Yes, interesting. So they're gonna have like flash sales on these things.
Yeah, so only until downtime tomorrow. So if you want it, buy it right now.
Okay. That's,
Limited time offer
yeah,
coming
good to
to
know.
you.
Good to know. All right. Well, thanks everybody for showing up, for all those nice subs that you guys gifted each other. Aderland, thank you for the cheers, and let's see if I can see. No, this is not wanting to cooperate, unfortunately. There it goes. Sawyer, yeah, I remember Sawyer and Racer 2K. And yeah, thanks for the follows, guys. Thanks for the hype train and all that good stuff. Really appreciate that. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. We will see you on Sunday, and stay tuned. I think actually I'm going to send you over to Open Comms. I do want to make one announcement. Next week we're going to have CCP on. We're going to talk about the new quadrant. That was actually going to be the first item that I was going to talk about. Where is it? There it was. No, there it is. We're going to talk about Foundation with some people from CCP. We'll do that on... haven't decided when to release it. We may actually record it during the day and then just replay it later on. But it may not be a live. We'll have to figure it out, but we'll tell you. But definitely next week, we're going to talk to CCP about this new quadrant, get you guys hyped up on all the cool stuff that's coming. And now, have some fun. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Sunday for the weekend report on Talking In Stations.